Divorcing a Latina woman isn't just paperwork. You married the woman of your dreams in a ceremony where three different relatives cried during the vows. Her mother insisted on blessing the rings twice, and the reception lasted until 4 a.m. because nobody in her family believes a party can end before sunrise. 5 years later, you're sitting across from her in a lawyer's office, and the silence between you feels heavier than anything you've ever carried. Divorcing a Latina woman isn't just paperwork. It's navigating two completely different universes of what marriage even means. She grew up in a culture where divorce wasn't just discouraged. In some cases, it was illegal. Chile didn't legalize divorce until 2004. Think about that. People born in the 90s got married in a country where divorce literally wasn't an option. Brazil legalized it in 1977. Argentina in 1987. Her grandmother's generation didn't have the word divorce in their vocabulary as a legitimate possibility. You grew up where divorce was normalized, where half your friends had 2 Christmases and called it a bonus, where splitting up was seen as a reasonable response to incompatibility. She grew up where staying together, no matter what, was the only respectable choice. The Catholic Church shaped laws and social attitudes across Latin America for centuries, and that influence doesn't evaporate just because someone crosses a border. Family unity isn't a preference in her culture, it's a mandate. Divorce carries shame that extends beyond the couple to parents, siblings, cousins, everyone. So when things fall apart, you're dealing with guilt on a scale you weren't prepared for. Her mother stopped speaking to you entirely. Not out of anger, but because in her world, you're the person who destroyed her daughter's life. Her father, who used to invite you to watch soccer every Sunday, now looks at you like you're a stranger who wandered into his house uninvited. And your soon-to-be ex-wife is caught between two worlds. The American one that tells her she deserves happiness and autonomy, and the one she was raised in that whispers she's failing her family, her faith, and every expectation ever placed on her. But here's what makes this even more complicated. Immigration status can turn an already painful divorce into a bureaucratic nightmare that determines whether she gets to stay in the country or gets sent back to a place she may not have lived in for years. If she has a conditional green card, the kind issued when you've been married less than 2 years, divorce during that period triggers immediate red flags. To remove those conditions and become a permanent resident, you're supposed to file jointly, together. Both signatures required. Divorce makes that impossible. She can still pursue permanent residency, but now she has to prove the marriage was genuine, that you didn't marry for immigration fraud, that when you stood at that altar with her mother crying and the priest going long, you actually meant it. The documentation burden is absurd. Joint bank statements, lease agreements with both names, photos from trips, utility bills, affidavits from friends confirming you were a real couple. She's essentially building a legal case that your love was authentic even though it's ending. And if the divorce happens while the green card application is still processing, before anything's been approved, the entire application collapses. The foundation was marriage. No marriage means no application. Even the path to citizenship gets rewritten. Conditional residents married to U.S. citizens can apply for citizenship after 3 years instead of 5. But if you divorce before hitting that 3-year mark, she's back to waiting 5 years. 2 extra years in legal limbo because the marriage ended 6 months too early. If she already has a permanent 10-year green card, divorce barely touches her immigration status. But if she doesn't, if you're separating during that conditional window, her ability to stay in the country is suddenly on the table. And that's just the immigration piece. Property division operates under rules that change depending on which state you filed in. Some states split everything 50-50 by default. Others aim for fair, which doesn't always mean equal. 9 states use community property laws: Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. In those states, everything earned or acquired during the marriage gets split down the middle. Your paycheck, her paycheck, the car you bought together, the savings account, the furniture, all of it. 50-50 by default, though Texas and Washington allow judges some discretion to deviate if equal doesn't feel just under the circumstances. The other 41 states plus Washington, D.C. follow equitable distribution. Fair doesn't always mean equal. A judge examines your income, her income, who contributed what, how long you were married, who has greater earning potential moving forward. They divide assets based on what seems reasonable given the full picture. Often that still ends up close to 50-50, but not always. Separate property stays separate. Anything you own before the marriage, any inheritance she received from her grandmother back in Colombia, gifts given specifically to one of you. That doesn't get divided. But here's where it gets tricky. If separate property gets mixed with marital property, if her inheritance goes into a joint account and you both spend from it, that money can become marital property. The line blurs fast. Then there's the question of where you actually file. If she moved here from Mexico, but you got married in California and now live in Texas, which state's laws apply? Jurisdiction matters. Community property in one state, equitable distribution in another. The difference can shift the entire financial outcome. And if you're thinking about getting divorced in her home country to make things easier, that brings its own complications. The United States has no treaty with any Latin American country regarding divorce recognition. Whether your state accepts a foreign divorce depends on whether both of you participated, whether you both had the chance to be heard, and critically, whether either of you actually lived in that country when the divorce happened. States can reject foreign divorces if neither party was residing there. You can't just fly to Mexico for a weekend divorce and expect it to hold up back home. Custody conversations layer on yet another dimension. Cultural expectations about parenting don't always align. In many Latin American families, extended family plays a significant role in raising children. Grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's not just the two of you. She might expect her mother to be deeply involved in decisions about the kids. You might see that as overstepping. Courts don't typically factor in cultural norms about extended family involvement, but those differences create tension long before you reach a courtroom. Educational background shifts how all of this plays out. Latinas with less formal education divorce at significantly lower rates than white Americans. But Latinas with college degrees or higher divorce more frequently than their white counterparts. Acculturation changes the equation. The more integrated into American social norms, the closer divorce rates trend toward the general U.S. population. What you're navigating isn't just a marriage ending. It's the collision of two entirely different frameworks for understanding what marriage even means. For her, it might have been a sacrament that doesn't dissolve just because things got hard. For you, it might have been a partnership that stops making sense when compatibility fades. Neither perspective is wrong, but they're not compatible with each other either. The psychological toll hits differently too. Studies show Latinos experience higher levels of distress during separation and divorce compared to being married. The shame, the family pressure, the religious weight, it compounds the already brutal process of dismantling a shared life. And all of this assumes you're dealing with just one set of cultural expectations. Latinas aren't a monolith. Someone from Argentina brings different beliefs than someone from Guatemala. Generation matters. Was she born here? Or did she immigrate at 25? Primary language, religious intensity, the specific values of machismo and Marianismo in her family. All of it shapes how divorce unfolds. You're not just ending a marriage. You're untangling two legal systems, two cultural frameworks, immigration consequences that could uproot her entire life, property laws that vary by state, and family dynamics that reach across borders. Every decision carries weight you didn't anticipate when you said I do. And the only way through is understanding that this was never going to be simple. You wanted partnership. She wanted forever. Those aren't always the same thing. What started with a ceremony that felt like joining two families ends with legal documents that try to separate what was never meant to be divided. The house you bought together. The language you started learning but never finished. The inside jokes her cousins still don't understand. You'll sign the papers. The judge will stamp the decree. Officially, legally, it'll be over. But her mother will still cross herself when someone mentions your name. Her little sister will still have the photo from your wedding in a box somewhere she can't bring herself to throw out. And years from now, when someone asks how long you were married, the number will sound smaller than it felt. Divorce between cultures doesn't have clean edges. It leaves behind questions neither legal system knows how to answer. Like whether you failed her, or whether you were just never supposed to carry the weight of two completely different worlds on your back. You married a woman whose grandmother believed marriage was a covenant with God. You grew up thinking marriage was a choice you could unmake. Somewhere between those two truths, you both tried. That has to count for something, even if it doesn't count enough to make you stay.